we go. Okay, we got a microphone on now. Okay, so we're going to use this diagram to create a three-dimensional part, which seems to be a skill that we're struggling in CAD, so this is a practice. We're going to try to recreate this. So there's some measurements on here that are pretty obvious. When we get to this section back here, I had to guess at what's going on because there aren't clear instructions there or measurements, but I think I got it. So to start off with, I like to start off with the basic shapes. So we have a basic rectangular base here, and then you can see there's 4 holes in the corners. So to start with, we're going to start off with this basic rectangle. So we need to find the measurements for the short side and what looks like a longer side here. So here I can see there's a line that leads me down to this measurement, and if I follow this line across, that looks like the short side measurement, which would be 80. Now if I look correspondingly over here, looks like that's the long side measurement, 120. So let's start our project with that measurement in mind, 80 by 120. We'll get started on Onshape here. So we're going to create a new document. We're going to name this thing, let's call it a bracket thingy. We're not sure what it is, but we're just going to give it a name, create. And it makes sense to me to sketch this first rectangle on the top plane. That way that's, the base is here, which would be considered like the floor. So we're going to go ahead and create a sketch and choose the top plane. You can either click it here or choose it from the list over here. Once you see that plane appear there, you can go ahead and rotate your view to the top, either by clicking on the view cube here, or you could right click and choose view normal to sketch plane. And then I like to hide my planes so it doesn't look like there's like existing geometry in here. So I'm going to click the P key on the keyboard to hide those planes. And now we're ready to sketch our rectangle. To have things nice and centered, if we're going to go, there's a couple ways to do this. There's a cheat here. If you do a center point rectangle, that's going to draw your rectangle like you would a circle where everything's centered on a point. I'm going to do it the long way just to show you there's another way to do it. If I do the traditional corner rectangle, I can go ahead and draw my rectangle, and then I'll go ahead and dimension it. Obviously it's not centered on the point of origin, but I've got my 80 on this side, and then I got my 120 on this side. And then in order for this to be centered on here, I could draw a construction line from one midpoint to the other, and then I can also draw another line from the midpoint here. Actually, I want this to be a construction line here. Okay, now I've got a center point, and I could either place a dot there, or I could go through the process of aligning this. I want this, if I make this coincident, point of origin, it's going to shift it down there. And then if I make this line also coincident with the point of origin, there we go. Now it's perfectly centered. So there's many ways to center an object, but the easiest would have been to choose a different tool to begin with the center point rectangle. But now I have a couple guidelines that may come in handy later on in my project. It's always nice to be centered. Okay. The other reason for that is I was thinking ahead, and if I turn my planes back on, you can see I'm going to need to eventually sketch on the right plane. That's where all the geometry that's sticking up from that base is going to be sketched on. So I would eventually be sketching on this right plane. Okay, let's go back to the top. While I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and sketch a few more things. And I can always go back and sketch more if I need to, but I'm going to go ahead and sketch some of these circles here. So I have 4 holes, and it looks like there's not a clear dimension of where they're placed, but it looks like it's centered. So the holes are centered there, and then the holes are centered here in amongst the space, and then they're evenly spaced on either side of the center. So let's just keep that in mind. I'm going to start with these holes that are near the short side of the rectangle. So the easiest way to do this would be to grab the circle tool. I'm going to go ahead on purpose create these different sizes and obviously not in line with each other. So these need to be symmetric. They need to be the same size and evenly spaced distance from the center point. So an easy way to do that is to find the constraint that is symmetric. What this does is you need to click on an object, then the dividing line, so this would be my dividing line, and then on the other side I want the other thing to be symmetric. So I'm going to click on it. It's going to immediately change the original to match, and it's also going to line them up symmetric to this line. So there we have it. One other thing you could do is to dimension one. Since they're symmetric, they will have to be the same size. So the size here says 4 holes with a diameter of 10. So I'm going to resize this to 10 millimeters. And you can see right away they both resized at the same time. So the next thing is to duplicate these over here. I could go through the same process and then space them out, but there's a tool that actually allows me to create a linear pattern. In this case I'm just patterning one copy. But if I click on linear pattern and select my objects that I want to pattern, you can see I get these two arrows that allow me to expand the pattern. So I want to expand the pattern this way to be 2 times, but it's also being expanded over here 3 times, and I don't need those. So I'm going to change the value to be 1 instance, not 3. I'm going to just do 1 because I want that to be singular, but I do want to duplicate it in this direction. So the next thing would be, now that I have my duplicates, I need to know how far apart they're spaced. So I'll go back to my sketch here. I have these holes are spaced 90 millimeters apart. Go back in here and change this measurement to 90. And then to accept this entire pattern creation, I just need to click anywhere outside to accept that pattern. And then I need to make sure that these are evenly spaced, like centered. So that needs to be symmetric. So I don't know if I could do this. We're going to try it. If I do symmetric, I need this and this and this to be symmetric. Alright. So for some reason they're not fully defined. I think because my pattern is editable. I'm not sure why these are not fully defined. Oh, I see, because the spacing between these two has not been set yet. Okay, that's the one missing measurement. So these are supposed to be 50 millimeters apart, center to center. So I'm going to go back in here, use my dimension tool, click on the center point of that circle and the center point of that circle, and then these are supposed to be 50 apart. Okay, now everything's nicely defined. That means it's fully defined, all the dimensions are put in, and everything is working out great. So at this point I could stop and continue on. I'm going to choose to do that because I want to get to the difficult parts first. There's some extra geometry that we could sketch later, but we'll come back to that. Okay, I'm going to click the check mark for now, and I'm going to go ahead and extrude this for my first part. I'm going to select that region, and since it has the circles in there, it's going to exclude those as it extrudes. I need to go in here to make sure that I extruded this the right depth, which over here is the only measurement that gives me the total depth here. So as you look around, you want to make sure that you take a note of all the important measurements. This is the only one that gives me this thickness, or the depth of the extrusion here. That's 15. So we go ahead here and change it to 15, and then click the check mark. So I've got my first part. And then the most of the other stuff is going to be modeled on top of this. And I'm going to choose to sketch that geometry on the right plane. So that's going to be the next step. So we're going to go ahead and create a sketch. Choose the right plane. So you should have sketch 2 right plane there. I'm going to click on the right plane here to align it. And then I'm going to try to sketch a line and see what happens. So the first thing I want to do is sketch on here a starting point for where my circles are going to be placed. So you have to imagine that I'm viewing it from this side, and then I need to sketch these 2 circles. That's the main geometry of this part, the bracket. So in order to do that, I need to go a certain distance from here up and a certain distance away from this edge. So let me go ahead and try to sketch a guideline. Okay, you can see I can't grab any of this surface. It's not allowing me to attach anything. So if that's the case and you want to use edges or like connecting points on an object that's not in the current sketch, you need to use what's called the Use tool. If you hover your mouse over here, you can see it says project edges or faces of an existing part or sketch onto the active sketch plane. So that's what I want to do. I want to project this edge onto my plane so I can sketch, with that reference point. So go ahead and click on the Use tool, and I want to project. It doesn't matter which edge I choose. I could choose this edge or this edge. It's going to, as soon as you click on it, it's going to project it onto your thing. Now I happen to have construction enabled, so it added it as a guideline, which is actually great for my purposes. So if you want to use something and have it be a regular line, let me go back a step. Click the Use tool, click on the line. Now it's a regular line. So let me go back and show you the difference. So if I click on construction, then the Use tool, both tools are on. So anything that I reference from another drawing or part is going to show up as a construction line. So I'm going to go ahead and use a construction line, click on that edge. Okay, now that I have that line, I'm going to now create another construction line. So I'm going to go disable the Use tool and then click on a construction line. And I want a line to appear somewhere around here. And let me show you on the drawing what I'm trying to model. I'm trying to get a line essentially that can be the center point. So here's the center point of this circle right here going through there. And this drawing is telling me that that is 60 millimeters from the base, or this top surface of the base here. So from that surface up to the center point of my circles is 60 millimeters. And then from the outer edge to where that line starts is 30 millimeters. So we're learning how to read diagrams. So the next thing I want to model, in my opinion, would be these circular shapes, and then all these other things are kind of attached to that. So I'm going to try to find where is the center point of this circle supposed to be. So I have found that it's supposed to be 60 millimeters up from this surface, and then 30 millimeters in from the edge. So now that I have a reference line that I can draw connected to, I'm just going to connect a vertical line. Let me go ahead and align myself. I'm going to click somewhere around here. We're not sure exactly where it is, but it needs to be attached to that point. And then I'm going to go ahead and just click and then press escape. I'm done creating that line. Now I need to dimension. I'm going to click here, click my line. This needs to be 60 from the surface. Then this point and this point need to be 30 millimeters away. So now my guideline is 30 millimeters from the edge, and 60 millimeters at this point is 60 millimeters from that surface. So I know my circles need to be attached to this end point. Now that I know that, I'm going to go ahead and sketch those circles. We don't really know the size, but we know one is larger than the other. I'm going to go ahead and click to create one circle, click right back there again, and create another circle. Now I can go into my sketch and see what that's supposed to be. So here I have on the edge, if you follow this up, that's the outer circle diameter. So this larger circle is 70 millimeters diameter. Go ahead and grab my dimension tool again, click on anywhere on the edge of the circle and then place your measurement, type 70, enter. So there's one. Go ahead and click anywhere on the surface of the circle there, and then actually the edge of the circle. Then place your measurement, and then this one's supposed to be 50. Okay, now we got this main portion sketched. The next thing we have a line that is diagonal from the base, or with this surface here, up to the circle. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Now we're not given the measurement of the line, or even where, from the surface, how high it is to attach to the circle. So I'm going to assume that this line is tangent to the surface of the circle, and then it attaches to the base. So I'm just going to go quickly sketch that, and then we'll come back and look at the dimensions. So we grab the line tool, click somewhere here, and then attach it to the circle. Now we can go back and see there is a measurement of where that line is supposed to start. It's found right here. So that is supposed to be 35 millimeters from this edge to where that line starts. 35. So I can grab my dimension tool, click on the edge point, and then this point. That's supposed to be 35 millimeters. And then I'm assuming that this is attached tangent to the circle. So tangent is a constraint. Grab the constraint, click on the line, and then click on the circle. It's going to make a tangent there. So that's nicely defined there. We have one more line, and this is where there's some question as to what the geometry is. I looked at this for a while, and I'm assuming because it's kind of attached, looks like it terminates here, the line edge of the bracket there, somewhat high up on the circle. So I don't think it's a straight line from the back of this bracket all the way to the circle. So maybe I'll show you what I mean. I don't think that it's a straight line from here to here. That would be a short line, and in my drawing it looks like it terminates somewhere up here. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. So I'm going to go ahead and assume, without knowing, that starts here at the end and then attaches to the circle, of course, not vertical. I'm going to make sure it's not vertical, and then I'm going to make it tangent. And in my opinion, that looks like about where it terminates in the drawing, somewhere around there. Not sure, but it looks better than a straight line up. So we're going to go with that. So the next thing I need to do is close the shape. So anytime you see a region that's not shaded in, that means it's not closed. So these regions are closed because it's a circle, but here this region is not closed yet. So I'm going to grab the line tool again and draw a line from this point to this point. Now you can see that that is shaded in, so that's now a region that can be extruded. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and close the sketch. Click the check mark to accept all of our geometry there. And now we can look at our sketch to see what we're supposed to do now with this stuff. Okay, I've got one more thing here. The kids are really distracting me in the hallway. They're just running around like animals. I forgot there's this little part right here which we could sketch now, or we could add onto it later. I'm going to choose to, let's add onto it later. No, let's do it now. Let's do it now, yeah. So I don't know much about this except for it looks like to be a rectangle that has vertical lines here, evenly spaced center line from the circle. So this is 10 millimeters from one side to the other, perfectly centered on this line. Let's go ahead and try to sketch that. So in my mind, I'm going to go back into my sketch. So double click here. You could do 2 lines, because basically that's all we need is 2 lines from the surface up. We'll go ahead and grab the line tool. Make one line that goes up here, vertical, and then create another line extends up this way, vertical. And then these need to be symmetric. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my constraints here, find symmetric. Again, you click on the object, then the center line, then the other object. Then it makes them symmetrical. So they're evenly spaced on either side of this line, and they're the exact same length. Right, now I need to dimension from this point to this point. It's supposed to be 10 millimeters apart. Exactly. Okay, so now everything's nicely defined, but you can see in here there's this entire circle with that little rectangle spot is all one surface. So I'm just going to clean up my drawing by trimming this extra little part of this circle. So I'm going to use the trim tool, zoom in here so you can see. I'm going to trim off these little parts here so that all of that is one surface. Okay, now I'm going to click my check mark once again. Now that I have all that, I'm going to start extruding. Let's start with the circle here. Go ahead and click on extrude. And then I select that region there. I'm going to go check my drawing to see what distance it should be, or depth of extrusion we have. We have 60 millimeters from one surface to the opposite surface. So there's two ways to do this. You could divide that in half and extrude this half first and then go back in and extrude the other half. But there's a handy dandy setting in the extrude that we could use that will save us some time. So let's go back into here. Now we need to do 60 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and change the depth to 60. And you can see it's extending out 60 millimeters one direction. And what I want is, half of it over here and half of it over there. So in the settings, there's an option to extrude symmetric. So if you choose that, you can see it's extruding half on one side and half on the other, which is exactly what we want to have take place. So there for this extrusion, we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark. It's already being added to our existing part. So that's all one part now. Let's go back and extrude. And I need to reveal my sketch, because when you use a sketch in an extrude, sometimes it thinks you want to just hide the sketch, which it did. So I need to go back and show the sketch so I can see these two regions. Now these two regions are extruded the same amount, so I'm going to go ahead and select both of them. So I have that region selected, and I want to select this region over here. So you can see what's going on there. And again, I want this to be symmetric, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that setting. And then I need to go back to my drawing to see what the depth is. I'm pretty sure it's 10. Let's go back in here and see. Yes, the depth of this extrusion should be 10, which means half of it is being extruded over here, half of it on the other side. So we're going to go in here and choose 10 as the depth. Alright. Click the check mark. I'm just going to rotate to a similar view as we see in the picture and see and compare what we have here. Let's see if I can get it to rotate. Something like that. They look very similar. Now there's an additional little cutout here. So to finish this off, we're going to go back to our original sketch and sketch two lines that will divide the space. So let's go back in here, go back to sketch 1, and I'm going to go ahead and draw the two lines that I need to divide my space. Let me view from the top and go ahead and hide the planes. There's a lot of geometry here, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull that over so I can see what's going on. Okay, so I need 2 lines. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line across here. Make sure it's horizontal and attached to both sides there. I'm going to draw another line over here. Make sure it's horizontal as well. Okay, now I need these to be symmetric on either side of the center line. So I'm going to go ahead and click symmetric. Click this line, and then this line. And then we'll make sure that they are centered, or this is in the center of both of those lines. Now all I need to do is dimension what is the spacing between these 2 points. The spacing should be 60 millimeters apart. So go back in here and find the dimension tool. Click on this point and this point. Change that to 60. And then I'm going to click the check mark and make sure that that sketch is visible. Oh, for some reason it broke sketch 2. Oh, because I divided the space. Okay, let me go back into sketch 2. We're going to go ahead and do all of sketch 1. Whoops. Some external references are missing. What does that mean? Oh. So when I divided the space, it messed up the extrude. I don't like that. So because I divided the space, it eliminated, part of the part. So it just divided the space for that first extrude. So let me go back. And there's a couple ways I could fix this. I could either create a new sketch for those dividing lines, or I can go into my first extrude and make sure I add all of the regions. Let's go ahead and do that. This is not ideal. This is why I should have sketched it first. But let's go ahead and choose all these regions. Let's go ahead and choose all of sketch 1. Okay, that should help. Okay. Now I can create a new extrusion. Sketch 1 is on here. If I extrude and I choose this region here, which has been divided, the space has been divided by those 2 lines that I just drew, which created a problem, but ideally I should have drawn this first. I'll admit that, but we can always fix things later. I'm going to click this region, and I'm going to use this to remove from my existing part. So instead of adding a new part, I'm going to be removing. So I'm going to click on remove. I need to reverse the direction, and then it's not a depth of 25. In my drawing, you can see the depth here. This little tiny measurement is 5. So I'm going to change the depth to 5. And you can see what's happening there is exactly what we need to complete this part. So I'm just going to go ahead and click the check mark and then view the result. So again, this is a practice that we're going to do a lot in class because it seems to be a struggle for some to find the measurements and kind of logically go through the process of what needs to be designed first. How do I get things to be symmetric? What is the process like to get started, and how to make sure that we're on the path that will lead us to an end result that is like the drawing. So hopefully this has been helpful in some of that thought process and how to organize your workflow to get to copy this part. Yeah. So that's it.